There are just so many PlayStation 1 RPGs, and some are more obscure for one reason or another. A particular subgenre of obscurity comes from being sequels to great games. Let's talk about some obscure or overlooked games that are number 2s. From the one I like the least to the one that surprised me the most, the journey starts with Alundra 2, A New Legend Begins. Alundra 2, A New Legend Begins is exactly that. It's a completely different game than the original Alundra, having basically nothing to do with Alundra. Crud, and that's kind of foreboding, right? This game released in the US in 2000. Developed by Matrix Software and published internationally by Activision, this title is technically an action role-playing game, but it's got a lot of 3D puzzles and a fair amount of platforming elements that really spice up or spice down the gameplay. However you want to put that, I think that helps, maybe that's a bit spicy, or it's a dumb joke. Move on, let's move on. As a player, you are Flint, a young swordsman and, gasp, a silent protagonist who is also a pirate hunter wanted for treason. And that's where the story begins. Flint infiltrates a flying airship staffed by humanoid robots, but things change a bit quickly as Flint's journey changes into a search for relics and a confrontation with a sorcerer whose ultimate intention is to mutate the planet and seize control using a giant structure called the Star Key. This little crank handle thing reminds me a lot of Clockwork Knight. You know that Sega Saturn platforming game? I don't know, it kind of makes me think about that. The game explores themes of technology and control. Mephisto uses magical wind-up keys to control humans and animals. It has political betrayal. Baron Diaz uses pirates to get rid of the princess's father, and it's about some ancient power stuff, which seems to be kind of a big thing with this video, you'll see. Mephisto, the bad guy, built this mysterious tower 2,000 years ago, and it's like a symbol of his power, I suppose. The narrative is more lighthearted as tone goes, and it's actually pretty funny. I mean, rather often, too.
Baron's orders.
Ha! And you two call yourselves pirates? Well, a real pirate wouldn't be caught dead floating up in the air like this.
The original Alundra might have looked really nice, but holy smokes, that game was dark. And I'm not talking about graphically dark, I'm talking crying in your basement sort of dark. Like Sinead O'Connor in the shower sort of dark. If you're interested in seeing me talk about that game, that'd be in this video. But, compared to Alundra, this is a Saturday morning cartoon. It really is.
This is just the kind of stupid caper you two mushheads would try.
It's a serviceable enough story to get you motivated to enjoy the gameplay, and it's not so dire that it's going to have you, listening to Sinead O'Connor crying in your bathtub. I do that for a different reason, so haha. Gameplay is simple, enjoyable, and, almost hypnotic. You fight enemies, you interact with NPCs, solve a few puzzles between locations, platform a bit when you need to, and generally just explore the world while you progress the story, uncovering the plot as you go. When you beat a boss, you get a life upgrade, kind of like Zelda. You whack enemies and bushes to get money, kind of like Zelda. You buy new weapons and life upgrades, and support your habit, the things that you got to do in these sort of games. The camera can be manually rotated 360 degrees, which is pretty handy, as you'll often find yourself having to track around on the camera to figure out where the heck you are. It can be a bit disorienting, but it's not game-breaking stuff. And of course, this actually helps out quite a bit with the puzzles. Flint can also learn additional successive strikes or combos by collecting special items called puzzle pieces and exchanging them with the character Lord Jihan. The game features magical ring items which grant Flint special movement powers, such as the ability to float in place or traverse harmful lava, but I hadn't quite made it that far in the game, so it sounds fun. Hey, it looks fun. Unsurprisingly, this feels somewhat similar to a classic title like The Legend of Zelda. It pays you for your careful observation and your puzzle solving. You gain access to stronger versions of the sword and shield and unlock powerful special attacks. Those combos I was talking about. You kill more junk, you find more gold, you do more levels. If Nintendo had screwed the pooch with a 3D Zelda, this absolutely could have been an entry in it. But instead, we got Ocarina of Time. That'll do, pig. That'll do. Visually, it's blocky as heck, but if you like those PlayStation 1 graphics, it's gorgeous. This feels like the line where we started to notice cartoons being better represented in video games. Now, I'm not talking about DuckTales and Darkwing Duck stuff, but when cutscenes start to look more like a cartoon than, a typical video game cutscene. When you crank up the graphics, you can really see what they were going for here, and it's just as lovely with the original graphics. Alundra 2, even in its day, was praised for its terrific graphics. I personally love love how cinematic this game is. It definitely has that Mega Man Legends vibe going on. I love the cutscenes, I love the voice acting. I love the camera angles and storytelling detail in the cutscenes which take place in-engine. It's just so impressive, honestly, and I think it's the best feature of the game. The combat can be as imprecise as it is enjoyable. After you hit a mob for practically no damage, it's invincible for a good moment before you can actually strike again. I guess you, as the hero, get the same treatment, like you're invincible for a moment, but the amount of time it takes for the character to get up is pretty frustrating. Also, enemies absolutely mollywop you in this game. Holy smokes. I found it a bit frustrating to have to wait so long between hits to hit another enemy, especially when they take several hits to kill. These daggone birds could take a hit, then get back up in the air beyond my reach before they were vulnerable again. So I just ran past them pretty often. They just took too long to kill. They weren't fun. There isn't experience for killing enemies, just money. But that money is necessary to pay for new stuff, so hey, the grind is on. But it is actually much more profitable and easier to just kill grass, to continue to fight grass, because the grass doesn't fight back and you can immediately destroy it and get a bunch of money. So really, there's not a whole lot of good to killing enemies that I found. Just a little tip for you there. The soundtrack isn't going to change your life, but it's still good. It's more than appropriate, it's not annoying. I enjoyed it, but I didn't add it to the iPod Nano Shuffle or Jukebox or whatever. You know, what you see is what you get with this game. The controls are a little loose on the precision side of things. Bosses can be annoyingly difficult at times, even though they are kind of neat. And some graphical separation in the polygons is a bit off-putting at times, but it's a staple of the times as well. You can't follow every game because of that. You know what though? Pretend that this game has nothing to do with the original Alundra or Zelda, and it's certainly worth taking a look at. It looks like it's between 20 to 25 hours for a playthrough, features many different playstyles, there's a lot going on here, and it's campy enough to be funny, but not annoying. I say it often about games, but this one obviously isn't perfect either, and importantly, that's okay. I'm not perfect either. It's just a 3D action RPG that really likes puzzle solving, really likes a lighthearted and humorous tone, and probably likes The Legend of Zelda and Mega Man Legends. From incredibly simple to incredibly complex, and probably the most complex RPG on this list, let's take a look at Saga Frontier 2. The Saga series in general is still sort of a mystery to me. Yeah, like I played some of the Final Fantasy Legend games on Game Boy, which is part of the Saga series, but I've played relatively nothing in this series, just a little here and a little there. I do know, however, that the difference in style between Saga Frontier 1 and Saga Frontier 2 is huge. And 2, dang. 2 is complicated and pretty, as so many good things in life are. Shout out to my wonderful wife. Released in the US on February 15th, 2000 for the PlayStation, Saga Frontier 2 was developed by Square Product Development Division 2 and published in North America by Square Electronic Arts. This title has a lot of hand-painted watercolor backdrops and characters that give the game a very storybook-like feel. Saga Frontier 1 gave you the option to choose between several characters, sort of like Octopath Traveler, which I love that game. And then you go from there. This one gives you a choice of 2, and that's okay. You play as Gustav the 13th, an exiled would-be heir on a quest to reclaim his throne, or William Knights, or Will Knights, a young man investigating the death of his parents. The story starts as Gustav the 13th is disinherited and exiled by his father at age 7 for failing to manifest magical abilities known as anima. Bummer, dude. Raw deal. Will Knights sets out at the age of 15 to become a famous digger in search of a legendary object known as the Egg. The separate narratives grow into a larger plot involving the fate of the world. Themes of political intrigue are at hand as we learn about Gustav's banishment and the war with his half-brother Philip. The story also capitalizes on that ancient power idea and that mysterious egg, and, more compelling to me, generational obsession. That sounds different. The narrative setup is different, but not wholly unique. It's one of those dual-track stories set in the fictional world of Sandel. The plot, location, and character names draw heavily from medieval Germanic and Anglo-Saxon influence, while the game's timeline spans several decades.
No one who speaks German could be an evil man.
The gameplay consists of advancing by completing story-based missions, interacting with NPCs, and traversing some harsh dungeon environments and defeating enemies. Like, I'm talking really, really harsh dungeon environments. I had my butt handed to me over and over and over by some just randomly difficult mobs and dungeons. I can appreciate that, but man, it is no joke. Like other Saga games, at least to my understanding, gameplay is largely non-linear, giving you multiple paths you could take in order to complete the game. Here's the real elephant in the room though. I like games where your experience and expertise is based on what is used the most. An example would be Final Fantasy II, Secret of Mana, Secret of Evermore. You know, you like attack things, you get stronger using that attack. It makes sense to me, like the more you swing a sword, the better you're going to get with a sword. And that's not like a popular opinion to my understanding, but I do like that sort of setup because it's, I guess, maybe different. However, I am just so overwhelmed by this system. It confuses me. I can appreciate the lack of tutorial because it's not going to bog me down. I can appreciate that as much as the next person, but the game doesn't just not hold your hand. It repels your hand and says, "Don't touch me, peasant." Ow. So let me see if I can accurately explain even my basic understanding of this combat system, which isn't much. My understanding, not the combat system. Oof. Combat can take place in 3 separate types. A duel, one-on-one, a team, up to 4 characters, or strategic, a large strategy-like scenario, maybe like the one you see in the beginning opening cutscenes or whatever. I didn't get to one of the strategy scenarios in the time that I played, so it might be a little further in. It is a long game. Anyway, by continually attacking an enemy with weapons, characters randomly learn special weapon skills that can deal more damage. Randomly. I guess it's kind of like the monkeys in 2001. Sorry, it just occurred to me. Like the monkeys in 2001 Space Odyssey where they pick up the bone and it's like, you're swinging with a sword and then randomly you're like, oh, I get it. These skills can also combine with other party members' attacks to form combo attacks. But I had trouble identifying what made one a combo or not. Maybe it's just intended experimentation. And I guess that's part of it in general. The game rewards exploration and battling, strategic input of specific commands in the turn-based battles, and assigning character roles to increase their proficiency with weapon and spell combinations. You gain increased statistic based on your actions in combat. Use a stick, get wood elemental, or use an axe and get stone elemental. And this affects the damage characters do against the creatures of opposing elements. I think, maybe, I think so. Use of weapons degrades the weapons. But spirit points do more damage the further they are from the total spirit points or something along those lines. Maybe the distance between the first number and the second is significant in doing more damage. It's weird. You can heal and it doesn't take mana, and that sounds awesome, but it takes life points, not to be confused with health points. But if you run out of health points, it's game over anyway. It's a lot, folks, and I read the manual. I actually opened the case up, pulled the manual out, and read that thing. And I was still like, what? I'd like to think that I have like a decent reading comprehension skill. I teach English, but I sure didn't feel any better equipped having read the manual. It's probably something just like not clicking for me or something, I don't know. But hitting attack over and over for the most part seemed to take care of business regardless, so I guess it worked. So whatever. Maybe this is more streamlined in the remaster. Let me know in the comments if you have a better idea of how to be effective in combat in this game, because I don't know. I'd certainly appreciate it. Visually, Saga Frontier 2 is a game that features 2-dimensional character sprites on hand-drawn backgrounds and utilizes hand-drawn and painted artwork that was scanned and digitized. Again, this watercolor backdrop and character art gives the game this storybook-like feel. The graphics look incredible, even on the PlayStation 1 original. They're really solid and just feel relaxing to look at. A comment I saw from an early reviewer praised it as a pleasant breeze of creativity when compared to most titles' CG, polygons, and pixel-perfect graphics. I have to say, I agree. It's really not bad at all, but I do have a couple of issues with this game. First of all, clearly the combat system I'm not utilizing to the degree that it should be. So unless you're willing to dive in and research a bit, you're likely to fumble around with it like me until something dies. I feel that the battles are a little slow and grindy. You can see enemies on the overworld, and I really appreciate that, but they're also not incredibly easy to avoid if you try. I found that places were a little long and confusing at times, and walking into enemies and being dragged into long combat sequences between a crawl of progress and a dungeon is a little frustrating. The story seemed fine, and the graphics really shine even today. It is a beautiful game. It is focused on non-linear progression. It utilizes deep combat mechanics with combo attacks, and it has a grand multi-generational story, which is pretty cool. So if that's your cup of tea, consider it. And as I mentioned before, there's a remaster available on multiple platforms.
To the story and party members.
You know what it's like, right? To have nostalgia goggles and you're like, oh, this game was incredible, but you remember it being so much better than it actually was. I fear that may have been the case for this next game for me. Now, that doesn't make it a bad game by any means, as it's a little further up on my list, but I remember this game being amazing, but maybe it just didn't click for me as much the second time. I have extremely fond memories of sitting on the hood of my car at 3 a.m. playing this game on the PSP and waiting for my dad to come help me out. The game that I was playing on the PSP was Tales of Eternia. Tales of Eternia was called Tales of Destiny 2 in the US, but it's not that simple. Tales of Destiny 2 is a different game in Japan, and it's a sequel to the original Tales of Destiny that we also got in the US. Tales of Eternia is not related to Tales of Destiny in any other manner than the confusing naming convention. So there, moving on.
Why does everything gotta be so hard?
Released in the US on September 18th, 2001 for the PlayStation, Tales of Eternia, I'll call it Tales of Eternia, but it's Tales of Destiny 2 in the US, is a 2D linear battle system RPG and the third main title in the Tales series. Developed by members of Telnet Japan's Wolf Team for the PlayStation release and published in North America by Namco Hometech, this title is like other Tales games of the time. It's like a traditional role-playing game with a fighting system, but not Legend of Legaia.
You mean like horse? No, it's not like horse!
You play as Reed Herschel, an 18-year-old hunter from a small village who just seems to enjoy a quiet life of eating and sleeping. Hey, that's understandable. The story begins as Reed and his friends Farah and Keel meet a mysterious girl named Meredy, who speaks an unknown language which is absolutely adorable. Listen to this. Yeah! Their quest eventually leads them to face a cataclysmic event that would destroy Reed's planet, Inferia. That is funny. Now it's clicking to me that Inferia is like inferior. But this would happen along with Meredy's planet, Celestia. Inferia and Celestia. I wonder which one's better. The trouble then is breaking down the communication barriers between these two worlds for the greater good. The game highlights conflict between the two worlds, and ancient power, big surprise, war, and the results of such. And Reed and his party journey across both worlds. The plot thus centers around an ancient conflict and the lack of trust between two worlds which are separated by the Orbis barrier. Gameplay is navigating the overworld map to move between locations, interacting with NPCs for information or to trigger plot events, purchasing equipment or items within new places, and of course battling enemies. The game was the first in the Tales series where you could just save anywhere, which is pretty lovely. The recurring series mechanic of cooking is also present, allowing characters to learn recipes to prepare stat enhancing or healing food out of combat.
I'm the Mysterious Wonder Chef. I'll teach you how to make the on-the-run sandwich. Learn to make sandwich. Wonderful.
It also encourages exploration because you can find optional recipes sometimes hidden as objects in the world. As mentioned before, the battle system is LMBS, the Linear Motion Battle System. For those unfamiliar, you're seeing it here. It's a system that combines fighting game feel and traditional role-playing game elements. For example, movements and attacks are done in real time, and it may feel like a super light Street Fighter or a more complicated beat-em-up. The player only directly controls one character at a time, but they have a large degree of control over the computer-controlled allies, and this includes the techniques that those computer allies choose to use. Players can also pause the action to use menus for things like items or issuing specific orders to allies. There's a lot of computer AI use going on behind the scenes for your characters, which can be a little frustrating at times, but you can adjust what they do in battle. I personally don't have an issue with this, as it allows me to focus on being as efficient and effective as I can while playing one character. Others might find the NPCs, particularly the NPCs that are supposed to heal, useless, but at least I'm not bitter about it. Visually, Tales of Eternia is absolutely lovely and has animated cutscenes that were created by anime studio Production IG. The graphics at the time were criticized by some for appearing dated, with one review actually stating that it would not be out of place on the Super Nintendo about 8 years ago. Well, they can kiss my grits. I love the pixel art sprites, and I think the character designs are delightful. The PSP port that I haven't played in years apparently featured redone battles in full widescreen and an improved frame rate on the overworld map, but I'm just taking the internet's word on that one because it's been, again, years ago that I was sitting on top of the car. Either way, the graphics look great, and if you're into 90s RPGs, despite this being an early 2000s release in the US, you're going to appreciate it. Maybe they are kind of dated, but I mean, if you like the 90s stuff, it's good. The soundtrack was done by the same people who worked on Tales of Fantasia and Tales of Destiny, the previous two games. The Japanese theme song Flying was performed by Garnet Crow, but this was replaced by an original orchestral piece in the English versions. Bummer. An official soundtrack containing 109 tracks was released in March of 2001. Geez, 109? Really? Yeah. A few points of issue that folks seem to have with the game are the same criticisms that some might see as features. The voice acting, okay, not the best.
Keel? By Keel you mean that crybaby good-for-nothing Keel Zabel?
That was when he was small.
Wow.
He's become a student at Minchi University.
If you do like this stuff though, which, I appreciate some bad voice acting, then the lack of voice acting all the way through could be an issue, because it's not everything is voiced. The story might be a little cliche and tropey, but you know what? The gameplay is where it shines. If you don't mind the story setup and the tropes, no harm, no foul, right? It's action-oriented, it's focused on real-time combat and strategic party control. It's a great classic style of 2D JRPG presentation with a fine story, it's good, about the collision of twin planets. It's probably not as great revisiting it as it was in my mind, but this by no means makes this a bad game. A lot of people love this game, and I still enjoy it, but man, I had it it was on a pedestal. I just went in with my nostalgia goggles on and such a super high expectation, and that's no crime of the game itself. It's just the faulty memory of an old dude revisiting his youth. Maybe I was just in the right place at the right time when I was playing that game. Sitting on the hood of my car at 3 a.m., enjoying Ree's journey as I started my own. Precious memories, how they linger. Precious memories. Before we continue, if you enjoy PlayStation 1 RPGs, you might consider the, 4 or 5 that I have on this channel already about PlayStation 1 RPGs. I'm a big fan of them. If you like those videos, you might consider subscribing to the channel. I'd certainly appreciate having you along for the journey as I've tried to play like every RPG. I've played them all. And while we're here, thank you to everyone who has made this such an incredible experience. I really do appreciate you. Thank you for your views, your subs, your comments, your advice, even your monetary contributions. Thank you. I really do appreciate that. Speaking of which, a big shout out to the following Patreon supporters. You guys are far more kind than I deserve, and a big thanks, of course, to Alec and Charchar for being Pixel Bro heroes. Here. Oh snap. Do you hear that? Oh, you know what you're thinking when you hear that music. Whew, it'll get you. I know it'll get you because I've got lots of comments about using this music in a few other videos in the beginning. I love it, you love it, and there's a reason. But what about the second game? Let's take a look. Wild Arms 2 was developed by Mediavision and published by Sony. Now it's an RPG, but holy moly, there's a lot of puzzles at times. Is this a bad thing? Well, if you don't like puzzles. Otherwise, I think it strikes a really good balance. It breaks up the gameplay and gives you something a little different every once in a while. You play as 3 different characters in the game to begin with, but eventually have a party of 6. I started with Lilka, the young magic user and apparent puzzle aficionado. This part took me quite a while, but it's probably because I ate paint chips as a kid. Another character, which is probably the one most would recognize, is Ashley Winchester, a reluctant young man who is a member of a military unit. And the other beginning character is this Rambo-looking Chuck Norris-like kickmaster Brad, who is escaping some sort of persecution and re-establishing his name. I don't remember all that much about Brad's scenario, but I know that he is a beast with a bazooka and he has a lead foot. What a man. Anyway, Ashley's military unit is involved in a demon summoning experiment conducted by the sinister organization Odessa. This experiment leads to Ashley being possessed by the demon lord Blazer until he represses it after claiming the legendary sword a legendary sword. This leads into a global conflict, and the international anti-terrorist group called ARMS is formed to combat the terrorist organization Odessa. Environmental decay, conflicting ideologies, and an old threat all enrich the plot. The narrative is a classic role-playing style, and that's good enough for me. it's a dandy. In the game, you progress through environments, battle enemies as expected, and in case I hadn't mentioned it before, you solve puzzles. Oncoming battles are randomly triggered but indicated by a speech balloon over the character's head and can sometimes be avoided. If you push a button, you can avoid battles when they pop up. I have never experienced that before in an RPG or really any game, I guess. It's interesting and it's kind of handy, honestly. If I don't want to fight, I don't want to fight. It's like the game is encouraging you to do some grinding, but if you don't want to, just push the button and move on. Hope you don't end up underpowered though. Battles are neat as you do the normal turn-based stuff, but blocking and attacking and such build up your FP so that you can use abilities. The FP bar resets after battle. I think I like this concept as it keeps you from having to worry about mana and that sort of stuff between battles, but mana is sort of represented elsewhere with bullets and such. Sometimes you have to reload your weapons, like, Brad's bazooka. Special devices called tools, unique to each character, allow the player to traverse otherwise impassable situations while not in battle, and it reminds me a bit of a Zelda setup. For example, Chuck Norris's kick boots allow him to move larger objects, and Lilka's fire wand allows you to light torches and activate switches from afar. Ashley gets a throwing dagger. I was impressed to see the physics of the falling dagger against a column be used for a puzzle as well.
Clever girl.
All of the characters have unique tools that keep things interesting. The game rewards you with progress and extra stuff for your ability to solve puzzles and master the use of these character-specific tools. Like most RPGs, you get progressively more powerful armor and weapons by finding or purchasing them. So it's got that loop: kill more junk, find more gold, and do story things. Visually, the game characters are represented as 2D sprites, while backgrounds and environments are 3D. The game is presented in an isometric fashion as seen here. Battle sequences are rendered entirely in 3D, and it has some of that cool Mega Man Legends and Alundra 2 facial expression stuff going on. I love it! I also really enjoyed the intro scenes for bosses. I think that's some really cool stuff going on there. I think someone in the stream might have called it a bit, corny or something, but I think it is iconic. The graphics look super solid for the time and have that late 90s PlayStation JRPG aesthetic that makes me just want to kiss a CRT. The added characters and all that out-of-combat field ability stuff keeps the game pretty fresh for the most part. But battles might be a little flashier than enjoyable after you've fought a ton of them. For this reason, we be fast-forwarding. Shame on me, maybe? When I get in a battle with enemies I've never seen, I marvel. I go, ooh, ah. But when it's an enemy that I've seen several times before, just whatever, fast-forward. That's really about the only complaint I have from what I've played. If you like the original Wild Arms, you'll probably like this one. It doesn't have that absolute opening banger, but that's okay, it's fine. It's still a really good opening song, and the opening cutscenes are still awesome. The puzzles are cool, the setup is awesome. It's so solid for a game that I rarely hear anything about. And maybe it's just that Wild Arms 1 tends to overshadow it. Until I played some for this video, I had never played this game, nor had I researched it or really even cared about it. It's been on my shelf for, I don't know, forever, a good while. I think I really need to sit down and play through all of these games. Maybe that'd be a good video, like a complete retrospective for Wild Arms. It'd be fun, be worth playing, probably worth my time to play and enjoy. Any thoughts? Let me know in the comments if that's something you'd be interested in for any particular series, really. But the game that surprised me most out of all of these, really kind of, I don't know, I feel weird saying it, but I stand by it. I was blown away by Parasite Eve 2. Now, Parasite Eve 2 is not Parasite Eve 1. It's not. But I dare say that's okay. Boo me if you want in the comments, I get it. But this game blew my expectations to pieces in a very, very good way. It came out September 12th, 2000 for the PlayStation, and it sort of bends genres often. Developed and published by Square, it's technically an action role-playing survival horror game, but it's got a lot of traditional survival horror game mechanics integrated with RPG progression, and has a little point-and-click aspect going on as well. The game was directed and written by Kenichi Iwao, who also wrote Resident Evil. Oh, okay, now we're making sense. That makes sense. Look, okay, so let's address this. I say Aya Bray, and it's probably Aya, it's whatever, Brea, but I say Aya Bray. Forgive me. My brain doesn't click with that anymore. But I'm going to say Aya Bray. And if you want to beat me up in the comments, hey, thanks for pushing the algorithm. Appreciate you. You play as Aya Bray, an FBI agent working at the Mitochondrial Investigation and Suppression Team Department. The Mist Department, right? I guess since the last game, she's certainly qualified now to address the threat. The story begins as Aya is dispatched into the Acropolis Tower shopping mall in Los Angeles to respond to reports of neo-mitochondrial creatures, or NMC, sightings. The situation becomes uncovering the shelter, an underground facility looking to recreate the issues from Game 1, is my understanding. This plan aims to deliberately create artificial neo-mitochondrial creatures, and it's Aya's job to put an end to it. Somebody's got to stop it, right? Much like the first game, there's themes of genetic mutation, global conspiracy, and survival horror. The narrative is structured like a classic survival horror title and is set 3 years after the events of the original game. I think that the story is actually as good, if not better, than the first, or maybe it's just delivered better or as well. I'm honestly not sure, as I am aware recency bias is a thing, and this is the last one I played of the two. The point that I'm trying to make here is that it is surprisingly good. The gameplay loop is great. Fight enemies, solve puzzles, explore, and level up abilities, which I wasn't aware of until somebody pointed out to me, because I was just using level 1 abilities over and over and playing hard mode when I didn't have to, because I'm an idiot. Thank you, chat. I used that fire spell for so long. Hard mode enabled because I'm a silly willy, I guess. The game diverges from the original by shifting to real-time battles and eliminating the range dome thing and active time bar, and I thought this would deter me a bit, but it certainly has it. I love the combat from the first game, don't get me wrong, but I also find that this combat is what a Resident Evil RPG would likely be, and that is a sexy, sexy thing. The idea of not having random battles is nearly always a plus for me, as I don't see how random battles really helps anything. I'm used to it, and it's one of those things that's like, well, we do it this way because we've always done it this way, I think. Let me know what you think about that in the comments. Like, I'm genuinely curious. Maybe you just want to attack me for saying Aya Bray. However, but if you want to talk about some actual, real interesting stuff, I'd be interested in hearing, like, what you think about random battles. You see a point in them being, like, hidden on the screen? Is there a reason for that? I guess thematically, there's probably like limitations for the system. That makes sense, but I'm curious. What do you think? I don't think this game is losing anything because I can see the enemies on the screen before I engage. Like, that's the kind of the point I'm making here. One of the things that makes the game a little more different than the others is that you have to use experience gained from defeating enemies to rediscover and prioritize abilities available with Aya's Parasite Energy, her PE, her Parasite Eve. Unlike the first game's level up system, the sequel allows players to choose freely which abilities they want to prioritize, and again, I really love this sort of powering up system. It's basically talent points. And you see this often in games, but it's certainly different than the first Parasite Eve. These abilities are categorized into 4 elements: fire for offensive, water for health related, wind for status related, and earth for damage stats. And each ability has 3 tiers. You know, the more I think about it, that has more in line with Quest 64 probably than Parasite Eve, which is weird to think about. Furthermore, ammunition is almost never in short supply, and infinite ammunition boxes exist in most areas for basic weapons, which may at first seem cheesy as it does away with some of the survival parts of survival horror, but it also encourages the player to fight rather than run. And for a game with great combat, hey, no problem. It's grind time, baby. Maybe what makes me really enjoy this game is its similarity to classic Resident Evil. I mean, it is a survival horror game with tank controls, and the fact that some of the development staff from Resident Evil helped with the game makes a whole lot of sense when you play it. A slight difference, however, from Resident Evil that I'm not mad about is that the game rewards fighting rather than running. It's still got careful management of equipment and armor without too much of a space limit, but it also encourages you to strategically prioritize those PE abilities, like kickball. When you beat the game, to my understanding, because I haven't beaten the game yet, you are awarded a ranking and can unlock bonus items in more difficult modes, such as Bounty Hunter and Scavenger. Several people in chat also noted that you can get Squall's Lionheart Gunblade in this game, and that is just too cool. Visually speaking, Parasite Eve 2 is a game that features character designs by artists like Tetsuya Nomura. The graphics look really solid and have that late 90s PlayStation horror sheen, and again, I'm here for it. The soundtrack is suitably described as ambient for a good part of it, but it's also got some rocking combat tunes. The composer, Naoshi Mizuta, drew influence from the game's scenario, and the sound effects are sort of futuristic and sci-fi themed. The game has been criticized for being a little repetitive. I mean, again, what you see is what you get. I do want to mention though that most of the screenshots and gameplay of the game I saw before playing did not do this game justice. As a matter of fact, I told my wife that I sort of dreaded playing this one. Once I got into it though, oh, wow. Actually experiencing the game really did a lot for me though, of course. And it made me realize that this game, Parasite Eve 2, is as special as the original. The tank controls and limited camera movement might look rough by today's standards, but if you don't mind that, I'd argue that you are in for a great time. You know what else makes for a great time? Choosing another video here, somewhere on the screen to continue your journey through my hours and hours of content. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. The finger stand up. Fix something to eat. Whatever.